Jason Epstein, owner of Premier Law Group and a professor at Seattle University. In this episode, we explore his journey from building successful law practice to shaping the next generation of legal minds in the classroom. Jason shares how leadership, risk taking, and long term vision played a role in growing Premier Law Group, and how his experiences both as an entrepreneur and educator has influenced his approach to law and mentorship. Over the next 30 minutes, we dive into the challenge of starting and scaling a firm, lessons learned along the way, and what aspiring professionals should understand about resilience, reputation, and responsibility in today's legal landscape. So, as just like a little icebreaker, I was really wondering what your opinion on law shows were. I'm not sure if you've seen like Suits or any other law shows. What do you think about them?
I've never seen Suits, but um, I've seen lots of other ones for sure.
Mhm.
Um, I think there are parts that are fairly accurate, and then there are parts that are completely inaccurate. I'm sure it's a lot like a show about any profession. If you made one that was like actually accurate on the day-to-day operations um, of most lawyers, I think it'd be really, really boring.
Yeah.
Um, So there's punctuated moments of excitement or lots of activity, but for the most part, I think what we do most of the time is sit on the phone or stare at a computer, and it's probably far too boring to make a TV show about.
Yeah. I mean, all the law stuff, I feel like they're doing a lot of illegal things as well.
Yeah, like again, I don't know Suits, but certainly like Better Call Saul and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that I've handled in the profession that is even as remotely as sketchy as anything that they show on most of those shows.
Yeah. So about your journey, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit on yours. Like, how did you start and how have you gotten where you are today?
Sure. So um, typical story in some ways, I guess. In some other ways, maybe it's a little different. So um, after high school, I took a year off before I went to college. Uh, Went to college. I started at Bellevue College, and then wound up transferring to USC, University of Southern California, where I graduated. Um, After I graduated, I took another year off before and kind of like tried to find a job. Um, and the job market was so bad for things that I wanted to do that I decided I had to go back to school to do something, and it was either med school or law school. And so I think at that point, law school was a little bit of a lighter lift based on my undergrad score. So applied to law school and went to law school. Graduated in 2001, I think. 2001, took the bar and passed the bar. Um, and then I worked for a couple of different firms for a handful of years. And then fortunately, around I think it was 2005 or 2006, I joined up with my current partner in Premier Law Group and have been running Premier Law Group ever since then.
I had one question. What motivated you to join Premier Law Group and why personal injury law?
So I was fortunate in that when I was in law school, I always knew that I wanted to do personal injury. So I always had a direction in the law that I was headed. Um, the primary reason for that, I don't know how much you know about how lawyers work in general, but specifically personal injury attorneys. So most lawyers work on an hourly billable model where they keep track of their hours and then bill the client for the time that they spend on the
Mhm.
cases. Um, and I never wanted to do that. Personal injury lawyers don't do that. We bill on what's called a contingency fee model. which means that I only get paid by my clients when I win for them, and then I get paid a percentage of whatever I recover on the case. And so typically it's a third. So if I'm able to get someone $100,000, then my fee of that is a third, which is $33,333.33. And so that appealed to me for several reasons, but the biggest reason is that um, if you're billing uh, on an hourly basis, then the amount of money that you can make in any given time is directly tied to the amount of hours of work you want to put in. Whereas in personal injury, it's not. So I could make theoretically more money working less time when I'm not doing something where it's tied to my hours. Now, that's not always true. There are certain personal injury lawyers, and certainly different personal injury cases where, because of the way the case goes, I wind up making less per hour than I would if I billed, a standard hourly rate. But I prefer the contingency fee model because um, I feel like we're one of the few areas of the law where my interests are completely aligned with my client's interests. So when I tell a client, like, hey, we need to do A, B, and C, they don't need to worry that I'm telling them that because I just want to be able to bill more hours. If I'm telling a client we have to do something, it's because it's going to be the way that I think we can maximize the amount of money we can get them. And the more money I get from my clients, the more money I get for myself. So I always knew
Posted
that
detected at the front door.
ooh, excitement. Do you need to get it? You need to see who's there?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, all right. Um, so I always knew that personal injury was the way I wanted to go.
It makes a lot of sense. It also rewards your skills more than just your time, which I feel like is very important.
It can, and
Going,
it can certainly reward if you have an entrepreneurial nature, and you can figure out a way to build and grow business and efficiencies. It can reward that.
Now going to that a little bit deeper, what would you say a typical day is like when you're working one of these cases?
Well, at this point in my career, it's different than it was at earlier points because now I've built a team, and my team, uh, whether it's lawyers that work for me or non-lawyers, my team handles most of the day-to-day case management things that we have to do. So, um, at this point in my life, I typically will get into the office around 8 or 8:30, and I'm usually gone by 12:30 or 1. Um, so I don't know if you do the math. What is that? I'm working maybe 20, 25 hours a week.
Mhm.
While I'm there, some amount of the time is spent talking to clients and kind of solving client problems. But most of my day is spent either um, managing my staff and helping my staff and my team run and be more efficient and process the cases, or um, the other thing that I do is figure out how to keep cases coming in. So I run all the marketing and generate all the new business for the office, and so that's an important part of the job that I probably spend at least half of the day doing things in that category.
And what about when you were a little bit younger into the job?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger and I was doing more of the case processing and the legal work, then it's a grind. I mean, depending on where a case is, there are different things that need to be done. So in the early parts so I mean, if you start at the beginning, you're dealing with people who have been in an accident and are calling you because they know they need help, but they don't really know what they need. And so, you're establishing relationships with these potential clients that call in, ultimately getting them to retain you to represent them, and then you're doing a lot of kind of guidance and handholding, I would say. So making sure that they're doing the right things for their case as far as, you know, um, getting the right medical treatment and things like that. Um, you deal a lot with insurance companies and ancillary companies. So whether it's the providers that my medical providers, my clients are seeing, or other related insurance companies, like how health insurance is kind of peripherally related. Um, and then ultimately, you gather up all your clients' medical records when they're done with their treatment, and you send out what's called a demand package to the insurance company, where you say, here's my client, here's what happened to them, here are all their injuries, here are all the medical records, and here's how much money we want. And then you negotiate. And at that point, one of two things happens: either you're able to reach a settlement because the insurance company will offer a reasonable amount, or if they don't, then you have to file a lawsuit and start litigation. So um, when you have to do that, the work changes dramatically, because instead of kind of dealing with people, you're dealing with more, the court and motions practice and filing the right documents at the right times, and then meeting with witnesses and doing depositions and meeting with expert witnesses like doctors or accident reconstructionists, and gathering the evidence that's going to be submitted at trial. And then ultimately, if through that whole process the case still doesn't settle, then you go to trial in front of a judge and a jury, and do the whole thing like you see on TV.
Talking about what we see on TV, what about like, do you have a personal anecdote or a case that was really memorable to you that you'd like to share?
I mean, I have lots and lots of cases that will stick with you for a long time, because remember, I deal with people that are hurt, right? And so
Yeah.
I've seen some pretty messed up injuries, and some people that are in pretty bad shape, up to and including dead. Um, and so certainly there are those there's some of those stories that will stay with you for a long time for one reason or another. But as far as kind of relating it to what you just asked about, more like what you see on TV, I mean, certainly I've had some experiences in a courtroom that are, I mean, really, for lack of a better word, are funny, because you don't change who you are just because you're suddenly in court. And so I'm kind of like a not so serious guy all the time. And so that's just part of my personality, is to kind of be make light of certain things, and try to laugh at certain things. And so there have been times in a courtroom where something awkward will happen, and instead of just pretending like it didn't happen, I kind of lean into it, and acknowledge it either with the jury or the judge. And so you can get a whole courtroom to kind of break out into laughter when you're in the middle of something serious. And so um, sometimes it's not always kind of the high drama that you see on TV, where the words are always perfect, and you're always hanging on someone's answer. In
Mm.
fact, that rarely happens. It's actually pretty messy in general being in a courtroom.
Could you speak to that a little bit more?
It's sure. I mean, it's you're dealing with a bunch of human beings, so you're dealing with 12 to 14 jurors, because usually there's a couple alternates, and then you got the judge, and then you got the court staff, and then you've got the people on the counsel at one table and their clients, and then you got the counsel at the other table and their clients, and then sometimes you have an audience that's watching, which is called the gallery. And so you have between, let's say, 20 and 50 people in a courtroom, and when you put that many people in one environment, in my experience, kind of funny stuff just will happen from time to time. And so, I'm always one that when something funny happens, I like to kind of make it more funny instead of ignoring it.
I mean, it makes it look more human as well instead of just a suit. I think it's a good strategy as well.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly don't do it for strategy. I just do it because that's the only speed I have. I'm
Yeah.
just, I am who I am. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a big, it's a big thing that I think a lot of lawyers lose through the process of going to law school, and kind of the whole process is that you in a sense, you do kind of lose your humanity, and you become kind of like a lawyer robot. And
Mm.
so, the more you can untrain that out of yourself and be more of a human, I think people will resonate with that.
Shifting the conversation a little bit, you recently became a law professor at Seattle U. I was wondering, what skill do you think you need to see for students to succeed? Or what skills are you trying to hone into these students?
Um, I mean, that's a tough question because there's so many different things you can do with a law degree to be successful. Um, and and so I don't know that I could say, um, one skill or something like that. Also, so far I'm currently teaching my second class. So I taught a class last term, and I'm teaching a class this term. And first term, I taught a class called pretrial litigation skills, and this term I'm teaching a class called law firm entrepreneurship, which is something I is more kind of dear to me, kind of how you run an efficient business and how you grow a practice and how you build a practice and all those things. Um, but I think that if I kind of had to consolidate, like what is going to make somebody successful as a lawyer no matter what they do. And again, there's like so many careers you can get into as a lawyer, including not even being a lawyer, but just where, having gone to law school helps. Um, I think that being kind of like a constant learner is probably the most valuable. So, never stop learning, never rest on what and kind of your past laurels, and always try to, what can I do to get better at this thing I'm doing, whatever that thing is within the law. I think is a valuable skill to
Motion
have.
detected at the front door.
Oh man, they're not going away.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do?
You're just gonna have to hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's Amazon, but why is the guy hanging out?
Yeah. Um, sorry, completely took me off.
It's okay.
Yeah. So, you were a law student quite a while ago. Do you see a lot of differences between when you were a law student versus how you see students are nowadays?
So from my limited subjective experience, I feel like the kids that I'm teaching now are much smarter and more grown up than I was when I was in law school. So I mean, and I don't know if that's just my perception or if it's actually true, but I feel like this is a group of really capable and smart people that I'm teaching, and it was last term too. And I feel like I didn't feel that smart and capable when I was in law school, but I certainly see it in them.
Good. And then this was more of a personal question that I had. Because online, you see a lot about how paralegals may be phasing out because of the role of AI. I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that as someone who's actually in the field?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of deep um, from a non-technical perspective. I'm deep into figuring out as much as I can figure out about AI, and how to use it and integrate it effectively in a law practice, primarily to drive efficiencies. Um, I I don't think in the near future. I think that, and by near future I mean, let's say in the next 5 to 7 years. Let's
Motion
say.
detected at the front door.
Oh shit! Oh shit! They're what are they doing out there? They're coming in.
I don't know. Let
Do you
me
have a
fix this real
camera?
quick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much. Sorry.
Sure. It's okay.
that has fixed things, hopefully.
Was it a lost dog? What was going on?
Uh, my parents had cleaners over, and they were just
Uh,
opening and entering the, yeah, they're about to
just
leave.
hanging out outside.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So to answer your question, I think that in the short term, meaning the next 5 to 7 years, I think that um, AI and different applications of the AI will be able to replace what most people who work with a computer every day do. But I don't know that even though it's going to have that capability, that it's actually going to be implemented that way across the workforce because people still have to make decisions. People that are running businesses have to make decisions about what's going to best serve their customers. And I think to a certain degree, we're not ready for that. So an example is when I'm calling a larger business and I get into an AI call center. Um, my first response is to always ask for a human, um, even though, and I don't know why that's my first response, because chances are, if I have something simple, the AI may actually be able to solve my problem. And so I'm not sure why that's my first response, but it still is. Um, and so I think it's going to take some time until we're ready as a society to have humans doing less jobs that we're used to humans doing right now. Um, so I see AI as a tool that's going to make things that we want to use it for significantly more efficient. So I could see there are certain jobs where we're customer facing, like a paralegal, where I don't think that they're going to be replaced by AI in the short term, because I think people still want to talk to a person. But there are other things that we can have the AI doing. So, one of the things we use AI for in my practice is we use it to summarize voluminous medical records. So we'll upload thousands of pages of medical records to an AI program that we use, and the AI will give us a medical summary and say, here's what this person did, and here's what happened to them, and here's the treatment they got. And so that type of job that wasn't customer facing, or that component of the paralegal's job, can and is now being replaced by AI. But I'm not getting rid of the person. I'm just making them more efficient.
I see. That makes a lot of sense. I also have a similar belief that, in the short term, people might not be ready, but next 10, 20, 30 years, a lot of things are going to change in a lot of industries. So there's really no point getting overwhelmed right now.
Yeah, and the other thing is I've seen other technological revolutions in my time. And there's always, anytime something like this happens, there's always a group of people that are going to say the sky is falling. But what happens is, yeah, anytime there's a disruptive technology, it does uh, get rid of a certain subset of jobs, but almost invariably it replaces them with a different subset of jobs. And so there is disruption and people are displaced, but then there's a whole new set of the economy will take off. And I don't know what that is right now. I don't know if I'm able to you know look in a crystal ball and figure that out. I guess if I could, I'd be a billionaire. But I don't think I don't think there's not going to be work to do. I don't think we're getting to the point yet where we're going to be a post job society.
Shifting gears on one more time, what do you think are some of the best ways for, law school students to gain early exposure to the legal field, and how should they approach internships, job shadowing, working at law firms?
Um, I think it's really hard to say. Because I've done stuff like that before, had job shadows and done internships. And I think they can go from, anywhere on a spectrum of being completely worthless to being valuable for the person doing them, depending. I think the best way to kind of learn anything is to get thrown into it. And that's particularly common in the legal field. Like, when you're a new lawyer, you don't really know how to do much because, you've gotten through law school, but law school doesn't teach you how to practice law. Law school just teaches you how to get through law school. Um, and so, typically you get out of law school and you get a job and you just kind of get thrown into stuff and you have to sink or swim on your own. And so when we have, interns, we'll do that on a project basis. So we'll give them a project that is, related to something and say, here's kind of the outcome we want. Here it is, go ahead and get started. And the law is kind of like that, where you kind of have to a certain degree, figure things out on your own as you go. Things like job shadows, I mean, I don't think it really works that well unless you're doing something there. So like if somebody was job shadowing one of my associate attorneys that's a litigator, that might be more interesting because on a day they may have to take a deposition, or they may have to defend a deposition, or do a hearing or something like that. So I guess if somebody's shadowing one of those kind of formal interactions, that could be interesting. But for the most part, most of what we do is either sitting on the phone talking to somebody, or dealing with stuff on our computer, and so it's not that interesting to shadow.
Hmm. And then for those who are even younger, so people like my age, 18 years old, what do you recommend them to do to gain law experience or gain any sort of experience, really?
um, well, yeah, I mean, if somebody like you approached my firm and said, hey, look, I want some exposure to what it's like to work in a law office. I don't care what it is I'm doing, if I'm shredding papers or making photocopies or whatever. I just want to be in that environment, and I don't care if you pay me. So you're kind of lowering the barrier and making it easy for somebody to give you an opportunity like that. I think that's going to be the easiest way to get that kind of experience. But I also don't know that it's necessarily going to be great experience either. And that's kind of that's the thing. Like, it's to see kind of the things that I think somebody would be expecting to see in the legal field. It would have to be significantly more curated than what I'm recommending, and the more that it has to be curated, the harder it is for somebody like me to deliver that, because I might be like, it's just more of a pain for me to do that than it's worth it. So it just, I guess I don't have a great answer, and it would depend on it's in some ways it'd be similar to saying, like, I want a job shadow a doctor or something. Like, yeah, if they were doing surgery, it might be interesting. But if what they're doing is doing their charting to make up for all the lost hours that they didn't chart because they were super busy, and so you're just watching them dictate into a computer, it wouldn't be that interesting. So I think it just really depends on kind of what you want to get out of it, and the people who you have that may be willing to give you access to that. So that was kind of a non-answer, but I think it's the best I can do.
I'll just shoot my shot. I'm free to
Sure.
make photocopies this summer if anyone wants it. I'm ready.
Are are you? We haven't even talked about this. Are you local? Are you in Seattle?
I'm local, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, we've had other people do that, and in some ways, I feel bad because, like I said, it's like we're not really teaching you anything. Like, I'm teaching, like this the stuff that you could, the stuff that would be suitable for somebody like you to do in my office. You could really get that like in almost any office environment. And I guess in some ways offices are kind of dying, but wouldn't even necessarily be law related. I guess, like, tangentially, you would be around lawyers and paralegals and law firm admins that are processing cases as they do it. But it wouldn't be any different than working at Costco corporate and being in their HR department and doing photocopying. Like it wouldn't teach you, and that wouldn't teach you anything really about what it's like to work in Costco management. It's kind of hard to until you're doing the thing. It's kind of hard to really give you the experience of doing the thing.
That makes sense. Thank you. Those are all the questions I had. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, where do you go to high school?
Eastlake, Eastlake High School.
Eastlake. Okay. And was Eastlake, where is that? Is that in Sammamish?
It's in my mesh, yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, no, I don't think I have any questions for you. So you're planning on, are you applying to colleges? Have you gotten in anywhere
I
yet?
am. Yeah, applying to a few places like Georgetown, Boston, UW. I've gone into places like Case Western, Indiana University, but that's for like finance. A couple places of economics.
Okay. I mean, I would say my advice to you, this was completely unsolicited. This is not a question you asked me, and it's not a question for you, but here's my advice to you. Because of what we talked about earlier with AI changing things, is I think that what I would focus on if I was you is a part of whatever it is you decide to do, whatever path your education takes you on, a part of that that can't be replaced by AI. And that is primarily human relationships in my experience. And so, I think that's where kind of the next group of successful entrepreneurs are going to be people who understand how to use the technologies that are available and have spent time playing around in them and figuring out how to make Claude work for you and how to make Gemini work for you, and but then also understanding that at the end of the day, people really crave those human relationships and they work with people they want to work with. And so the more that you can find those things that can't be replaced and get really good at doing those things and let the AI do the things that it's good at and not worry that it's taking those things away, I think that's the key to success.
No, thank you. It's not unsolicited at all. I appreciate the advice.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure. Yeah, thanks for reaching out. And if if more stuff comes up and you have any more questions, I'm happy to help out.
Thank you so much. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.